I never thought following the rules could get someone fired, but by the time Derek Caldwell realized what was happening, it was already too late for him. And the weirdest part? I hadn't broken a single rule. Not one. It started with a single comment, almost offhand, during a team meeting. I had just presented my workflow optimization plan, the one I'd spent weeks perfecting. Charts, Gantt timelines, resource allocation matrices, the whole 9 yards. Derek, standing behind me with that smug half-smile, leaned in and said, "Impressive, but I don't think you're ready to lead a cross-functional team yet. Maybe next year." Next year? After 8 years of perfect attendance, flawless audits, and documented successes across every operational KPI? That maybe felt like a slap across the face, but I smiled and nodded anyway. I'd learned long ago that showing anger wasn't worth it, not until I had leverage. At first, it was subtle. A tiny shift in deadlines, a one-day shortening of the weekly planning sheets. Not a huge deal, except these changes weren't official. They didn't go through the workflow system, and there was no email record. "Don't worry about these adjustments," Derek said in his office, the door half closed so the team wouldn't hear. "You're still learning." I nodded politely, but as I walked back to my desk, I started logging every single request, every deadline change, every verbal instruction that contradicted policy, every side task that wasn't in the job description. My hero notebook, an unassuming spiral notebook I carried everywhere, became my quiet witness. The office smelled faintly of stale coffee and printer toner, the fluorescent lights buzzing just enough to keep you on edge. I liked to work near the corner window, where I could glance down at the parking lot and see the flow of delivery trucks. There was a rhythm to it, a pattern, and I thrived on patterns. I knew that one day, understanding the rhythm of Derek's shortcuts would matter. The second incident came during the quarterly presentation. I had optimized the resource allocation model for 3 warehouses. The software visualizations, color-coded task boards, and automated reports were my pride. But as soon as I started explaining the methodology, Derek interrupted. "I want to highlight this improvement," he said, flipping through my slides like they were his. "Our team has implemented a new workflow that reduced shipment errors by 32%. The audience applauded, unaware that every single slide, every line, every formula had come from my desk. My fingers itched to correct him, but I stayed calm. Instead, I discreetly recorded the meeting on my phone and screenshotted every relevant email chain. Employee Handbook, Section 3.4.2.2. All contributions must be properly credited. I was preparing for a future where that section would matter more than anyone could imagine. Later, in the team meeting, Derek leaned back in his chair and smirked. "I don't think you're ready to manage a cross-functional team. Maybe next year," he repeated, this time louder, with a hint of mockery. Everyone laughed politely. I didn't. I simply nodded, then quietly forwarded the meeting transcript to my personal audit folder. Then came the nuclear moment, the one that finally broke the line of patience I had been holding on to for 8 years. Derek came to me on a Wednesday morning with a task so absurd it made my stomach turn. "You need to mislabel these hazardous materials," he said, holding a stack of crates. "Just swap the labels. It'll save us hours on inventory." I looked at him, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm happy to follow my job description exactly." I flipped open my spiral notebook to the relevant section. "All hazardous materials must be labeled according to OSHA Section 1910.1200. Mislabeling would violate federal regulations and company policy." He waved his hand dismissively. "Just do it my way. We don't have time for your rules." And that was it. That was the line. My decision was instantaneous. I would comply, but only to the letter of my job description. Every shortcut he wanted, every illegal maneuver, every stolen credit, not happening. I could see the gears in Derek's mind start to grind, and I smiled inwardly. I knew the office layout, the internal audit system, the exact logs that tracked every single edit and approval. I had the timestamps, the memos, the emails, all meticulously documented. This wasn't just revenge, this was a surgical strike, executed with precision. It might sound boring, but every detail mattered. The exact wording in the job description. All operational processes must comply with internal safety protocols and federal regulations. This was my shield. the internal audit tracking system. Every deviation Derek attempted was automatically logged. I could pinpoint who changed what, when, and where. Email timestamps and memos, chronological evidence of every unlawful or unsafe instruction Derek gave. Every one of them was neatly organized in my secure folder, ready for the moment I needed leverage.
I didn't have to act yet, but I needed to let Derek feel the sting of underestimation. That was the essence of patience. That was the edge of strategy. As I sat at my desk, the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the background, I finally allowed myself to think it aloud. 8 years. 8 years of following the rules, optimizing the workflow, keeping the company afloat while Derek micromanaged, took credit, and threatened my promotion. Enough. I didn't need rage. I didn't need confrontation. What I needed was precision. Every time Derek asked me to bend the rules, I would comply in a way that exposed the consequences of breaking the rules. Every illegal shortcut he wanted, I'd execute it, but in full accordance with the official regulations. I leaned back, watching the sun glint off the chrome handles of the filing cabinets, thinking of how beautiful it would be when everything fell exactly into place. I spent that evening at my apartment reviewing every policy, every clause in the handbook, and every internal procedure. My laptop hummed quietly, the screen filled with spreadsheets, PDFs, and color-coded folders. I had a ritual I'd developed over the years. Every document had a code, letters and numbers that referenced the section, page, and subsection. It was almost obsessive, but I needed it. By 8 p.m., I had mapped out the plan. Every illegal shortcut Derek had ever asked me to do would be followed, but only under the exact compliance rules of the company. Every misstep he wanted would be recorded. Every corner-cutting shortcut he hoped to escape scrutiny from would instead be immortalized in digital ink. I called it malicious compliance. It wasn't just about following the rules, it was about weaponizing them. Every time Derek ordered me to do something unsafe or unethical, I had a ready response. Shortcut he wanted, I'd insist on the exact procedure, quoting the handbook section, then document the delay caused. Credit stealing opportunity, I'd forward the email chain to myself and my audit folder, keeping timestamps intact. Regulatory violation, I'd refuse politely, explaining the consequences, but leave no room for argument. I even scheduled my actions around Derek's predictable daily habits. He always arrived at 8:15 a.m., coffee in hand, first to the warehouse. I knew the camera angles, which spots he avoided, and which terminals automatically logged his access. By the end of the week, my digital trail would be undeniable. It started subtly the next Monday. Derek dropped a stack of crates on my desk. "All right," he said, grinning. "I want these labeled wrong. Just swap the hazard signs. We don't have time for OSHA nonsense." I tapped my pen against the spreadsheet on my desk, pretending to calculate the timeline. I can only execute what my job description permits. Section 7.2 mandates proper labeling of hazardous materials. Anything else would be non-compliant. He frowned, then leaned over the crates. "Don't get smart with me. You follow my instructions or—" "I am following the instructions exactly. Step 1, verify hazardous content. Step 2, confirm storage location. Step 3, label according to OSHA SHT 1910.120. I can do all of that, but no shortcuts." His jaw tightened. He leaned back, muttering something about rules and regulations slowing everything down. I smiled to myself. Let him think he was still in control. Over the next few days, the office transformed into a war zone of procedural perfection. The crates, each one was meticulously labeled, double-checked, logged in the internal tracking system. Derek's shortcut would have saved 3 hours per warehouse, but by following the rules, the process took 5 hours longer. Every delay was documented automatically. Internal audit alerts, every attempt Derek made to bypass logging triggered automated alerts. I kept a running folder called Derek Deviations, adding notes like email 11:42 a.m. March 14th, instructed mislabeling of flammable materials, logged in compliance system at 11:45 a.m. Emails and memos, I replied to every directive with an acknowledgement and a polite restatement of policy. For example, Derek, just skip the safety check for these shipments. Me. Acknowledged. As per Section 7.2, all shipments require a completed safety check prior to dispatch. I'll proceed accordingly. Each reply was courteous, professional, and crucially, permanent. By Wednesday, Derek was visibly panicking. I could see it in his eyes during the team meeting. He leaned over the table, whispering, "Why are these processes taking so long?" "Following the procedures you asked me to bypass," I said softly, flipping open the audit log on my tablet. "Everything is documented. Any deviation would be non-compliant." He looked around, realizing others were watching. The tension in the room was palpable. I noted every movement, the way his hand trembled slightly when reaching for his coffee mug, the tap of his shoes against the polished floor, the barely suppressed sighs. Every small detail would matter when management reviewed the logs. It all came to a head Thursday afternoon when the client audit team arrived unexpectedly. I had already informed Derek that all crates were compliant, labeled, and logged. "You double-checked everything?" Derek asked, trying to mask his panic with authority. "Yes, according to OSHA 1910.1200 and internal company policy," I said calmly. The inspectors walked the warehouse floor, scanning the labels, checking documentation, and comparing it to the shipment manifests. One of them glanced at Derek, then back at me. "You've done everything by the book," he said. Derek's face went pale. He tried to interject. "Well, normally—" The inspectors ignored him, reviewing the logs I had compiled. Emails, memos, time-stamped edits, it was all there, perfectly chronological. Each instance where Derek had instructed a violation was clearly recorded. I stood silently, letting the scene unfold. Watching him realize he had no leverage was almost poetic. The room was silent except for the faint beeping of handheld scanners and the rustle of clipboards. Derek's usual bravado was gone, replaced with a nervous twitch in his jaw and a slight flush creeping up his neck. He shuffled papers in front of him as if that could erase the evidence. The lead auditor, a tall woman with sharp glasses, pointed at the label of a flammable crate. "This is correct," she said. "All contents properly documented, labeled, and verified. Can you explain the process?" Derek stammered. "Well, we usually—" I stepped forward, calmly presenting the internal audit folder I had prepared. All instructions were executed according to Section 7.2 of the company handbook, OSHA 1910.1200, and internal safety protocols. Any attempt to bypass these procedures would have been non-compliant. I opened the folder on the table, letting the digital timestamps and email threads project onto the meeting room screen. Every instruction Derek had given to cut corners, every memo requesting shortcuts, every verbal order that violated policy, it was all there, minute by minute, day by day, neatly documented. The auditors exchanged glances. Derek's hand gripped the edge of the table like a lifeline. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched. "Mr. Caldwell," one of the auditors said finally, "this is a clear violation of both company policy and federal law. Are you aware of this?" His face went red. I thought no one would notice." I leaned back slightly, letting the weight of 8 years of meticulous documentation settle over him. "I always follow my job description exactly," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Any deviation from protocol is recorded automatically. That includes shortcuts, mislabeling, and credit stealing. Everything you tried to hide has been preserved in the audit logs." Derek's eyes darted around the room, finally landing on upper management who had just arrived after hearing about the unexpected audit. Their expressions were grim. One of them opened their tablet, scanning the evidence I had compiled. I could see the moment it hit him. Derek's posture slumped, his shoulders sagged, and the smug expression he usually wore vanished completely. The truth was undeniable, and everyone in the room could see it. You set me up," he muttered, though his voice was more of a whisper than a threat. "I followed my job description exactly," I replied, keeping my tone steady. "Every illegal instruction, every corner you tried to cut, every attempt to claim credit, all documented. That's all it took."
Upper management didn't need any more evidence. Emails, timestamps, internal logs, and compliance audits, all neatly tied together, spoke louder than any words could. Derek's empire of shortcuts and micromanagement crumbled in front of him. By the end of the day, Derek Caldwell was suspended pending investigation. Internal HR reports confirmed gross misconduct and violations of federal law. Within a week, he was formally terminated, escorted out of the building while clutching his briefcase like it was a life raft. Meanwhile, I received an unexpected call from the VP of Operations. "Your handling of the audit was exemplary," she said. "You followed policy to the letter and ensured full compliance. We want you to take over the cross-functional team starting next week. And yes, that promotion is finally yours." I smiled, though I didn't say it out loud. 8 years, every detail recorded, every instruction followed exactly as it was written. This was my victory. The team, previously tense under Derek's micromanagement, now looked relieved and even cheerful. Morale skyrocketed, and a culture of compliance and respect began to root. As I sit at my desk now, watching the morning light hit the polished floors of the warehouse, I realize something. Revenge doesn't have to be loud, messy, or dramatic. Sometimes, the quiet precision of doing everything by the rules, meticulously and consistently, is far more devastating than anger or confrontation. Derek's downfall wasn't about shouting, threatening, or breaking laws. It was about the weight of truth, carried one email, one timestamp, and one policy section at a time. And it felt remarkably satisfying. Have you ever had a boss who tried to bend the rules and punish you for being careful? Let me know in the comments, because trust me, you don't have to fight fire with fire. Sometimes the rules are the weapon. And if you want to see more stories of workplace justice, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because there's always someone who thinks they can cut corners until someone else follows the rules exactly.